My spouse and I are both in our mid-50s, and we have been married for 30 years. One day, while we were in the process of moving, I made a discovery that would ultimately bring our marriage to an end. We had recently sold our home and made a substantial profit from the sale. As we were packing up our belongings, we decided to rent an apartment temporarily until we found a new place to call home. It was during this move that I stumbled upon a journal or diary, or at least that is what it appeared to be. However, there was no name inscribed on the cover. Upon inspection, I observed that the journal had been penned in a feminine hand. As I perused the contents, I discovered that it was my wife's diary, chronicling the relationships she had had with numerous men throughout her life. The most alarming piece of information was that she had engaged in an extramarital affair with my closest friend 10 years prior. It was a shocking revelation, particularly since we had been married for 30 years, and I was entirely oblivious to this fact. I was left wondering how she had managed to conceal it from me all these years. My friend was also married, and I couldn't help but wonder if his wife was aware that he had betrayed her as well. Several days have elapsed, and life has resumed its usual course. I have not confronted my wife yet, and I have decided not to inform our children, at least not at this time. All three of our children are grown up and living independently. I am still attempting to comprehend how this could have occurred and what my next move should be. Each time I contemplate the situation, I am consumed by rage, and I am unable to think rationally. Initially, I considered seeking counsel from someone, but I was hesitant to disclose what I had discovered. I had to find a way to channel my anger effectively. Perhaps this discovery was an indication that our marriage had reached its conclusion. Or perhaps it was simply a momentary lapse in judgment on her part. Regardless, I am still attempting to reconcile my emotions and determine my next course of action. However, one thing is certain. Her betrayal with my closest friend is something that I never expected. I had always believed that our marriage was strong. Now, everything is in question, including what our children believe. Unfortunately, her diary did not specify how long the affair had lasted. After successfully channeling my anger, I began researching the divorce laws in my state. Unfortunately, since I had no concrete evidence of the affair aside from a diary entry, I was left with very little. I reached out to a lawyer who provided a free consultation, and he advised me that pursuing legal action on the basis of the affair would be futile. Instead, he suggested that I file for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. However, he cautioned that if I was the primary earner, I may be obligated to pay alimony. Following my conversation with the lawyer, I made the decision to gamble on my chances in court. Learning of her infidelity with my closest friend shattered my perception of her as the pure and devoted wife I had envisioned. I recognized that things could never be the same again. Moreover, since Nevada is a no-fault state, I knew I would be responsible for alimony payments. Thus, I needed to mitigate the damage. My initial step was to stop searching for a new residence. There was no way I would purchase a home with her as my spouse. As a next step, I created 2 fresh accounts at separate banks. Following this, I carefully monitored the 4 credit cards where my wife had authorized access and scrutinized their activity. I noticed that 2 of these cards had been dormant for over a year, so I promptly removed her from those accounts. As for the other 2 credit cards, they had a minimal limit of $750 each, and I left her name on those for now. However, I did review the statements from our joint checking account and scrutinized them intently. Over the last 3 months, I observed that my wife had been writing checks to cash regularly, and it was apparent that these were not for household expenses or groceries. Upon closer examination, I discovered that she had transferred a significant sum of money into her personal account without informing me. My course of action was to gradually transfer small sums from the joint account to one of my new accounts. To avoid drawing attention to the account, I restricted the transfers to a few $100s over a period of a few weeks. Without my wife's knowledge, I also changed my direct deposit to be directed to my new account. Next, I scouted for apartments in another part of town and eventually found one that fit my budget. I was determined not to pay exorbitant rent. During this period, I was grappling with how to approach my wife about her affair with my best friend. Part of me wanted to confront her, while another part of me desired to make her experience the pain that I was going through. I decided to confide in our close family and friends about the betrayal, but I was concerned that the news might reach my children before I was ready to tell them. However, life continued as usual, and my wife remained oblivious to my plans. During one weekend, we hosted a family dinner, and all of our children were present. As we conversed about our lives, one of my kids mentioned that a friend of his had recently discovered his wife's infidelity while he was serving overseas in the military. He was due to return home in a few weeks. My wife expressed her outrage at the situation, and I silently shook my head without commenting. After the children left, my wife expressed a desire to speak with me. I informed her that I had some work to complete in my office and requested a few minutes to finish the project. The following day, I contacted my attorney and filed for divorce based on irreconcilable differences. As a software engineer, I earned significantly more than my wife, who worked part-time at a department store. Earlier today, I visited my attorney's office, and my wife informed me that she was going to have lunch with one of our children. This gave me an opportunity to gather my belongings and transport them to my new residence. Additionally, I made copies of all the pages from the journal, compiled them into a packet, and handed them over to my attorney without a particular purpose in mind. However, I later considered delivering a package to my ex-best friend's house. To ensure that he wouldn't intercept it, I revised my plan to ensure that his wife would receive it instead. I resolved to send the package via FedEx overnight, addressed solely to my ex-best friend's wife. The week passed, and my attorney informed me that the divorce proceedings were proceeding smoothly, and my wife would be served with the papers in a few weeks. However, after 3 more days, everything went haywire. My ex-best friend's wife had received the package I sent, and she called me in tears, expressing her heartbreak. At this juncture, I had lost all interest in what happened between them. My primary concern was to ensure that my children didn't suffer any adverse effects from the divorce. My wife called me, hysterical and in tears, and I calmly informed her that I knew about her affair and had filed for divorce. There was a moment of silence on the phone, and she implored me to explain why I was taking such drastic measures. I responded honestly, stating that it was the only recourse remaining for me. I reminded her that she had cheated on me with my best friend and had concealed it in her journal for 10 years. Unexpectedly, she hung up on me, leaving me in shock. My intuition warned me that something was amiss when she abruptly ended our conversation. I had a hunch that she might attempt to tarnish my reputation by accusing me of wrongdoing. Fortunately, I had documented evidence in my diary. Shortly after the incident, my children contacted me. To my relief, they didn't berate me, they simply inquired about the situation. I explained that my spouse and best friend had a secret relationship a decade ago, and I struggled to move past it. Regrettably, I can no longer trust her. During our conversation, one of my children asked if I could forgive my spouse. I replied that it's possible, but it will take time. However, I clarified that forgiveness doesn't require me to continue being her husband. Although I still have love for her, it's not enough to sustain our marriage after what happened. I explained to my children that people make mistakes and forgiveness is a process that takes time. As we wrapped up the discussion, one of my daughters expressed her pride in me for standing up for myself. Despite everything that happened, my former best friend never reached out to me, even after his wife received the package. When my spouse hung up on me during our call, I didn't return home. Instead, I sent one of my children to collect my belongings and bring them to me. Approximately a week later, my soon-to-be ex-wife was served with divorce papers, and our divorce hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. One day, while I was at work, my soon-to-be ex-wife visited one of our daughters to collect some dishes. However, my daughter sent me a photo that left me confused. The picture showed a man sitting in the passenger seat of my ex-wife's car, and upon closer inspection, I realized that it was my former best friend. Now I am left with the burning question of whether or not my children are biologically mine. Regardless, I love them and have raised them as my own. During the divorce hearing, I received a harsh outcome. I was ordered to pay $4,000 per month in alimony for 6 years. My ex-wife's attorney attempted to secure a larger sum, but my attorney successfully fought against it. She received a significant amount of money from the sale of our house. In fact, I provided her with $75,000 from the sale of the property, and I had proof of the transaction. The judge took this into account during the hearing. I suspect that the outcome could have been even worse if I had not given her any proceeds from the sale of the house. Following the divorce hearing, I learned that my ex-best friend had lost half of his retirement savings, was ordered to pay his ex-wife $5,000 per month in alimony, and she was awarded their house. Throughout this difficult time, my children have stood by my side and supported me. Without their unwavering love and encouragement, I might have made foolish decisions. I want to express my gratitude to Tony for sharing my story. I will provide an update on my children at a later date. I asked them to take a paternity test for me, and they all agreed to do so. The second story, it was funny for me to read it. I found out that my wife was cheating on me with a professor in our bed. I was furious, but I decided to play a little game. I sent her an email pretending to be the professor, and I asked her to meet me at a hotel. She fell for it, and when she showed up, I confronted her. She was so ashamed that she ran out of the hotel crying. I told my coworkers about what happened, and they all thought it was hilarious. I decided to share my story on Reddit, and it quickly went viral. I'm not sure why people found my story so funny, but I'm glad that I could make them laugh. Once again, he nudged me today. And now, as we sit down for drinks before a 4-day weekend, I finally completed my writing. During my college years, I met a woman whom I believed was the one. After 2 years of dating, we had a grand wedding following a 10-month engagement. Her family was well off in a small southern town, and we were both pursuing higher education. While I was working to support us, I was also pursuing my master's in engineering, and she was finishing her doctorate in anthropology. During the summer, my wife had the chance to earn some additional income by serving as an assistant on a religious studies excursion to Jamaica. Without any hesitation, I encouraged her to take the opportunity. After all, she would have the chance to explore Jamaica and get paid for it. The only downside was her absence from home for 6 weeks. What I didn't know was that she had been avoiding her professor. He had spent time with us, smoked, and drank my beer. I considered him a friend who had organized the trip for a couple of months. It turned out that the trip was actually an opportunity for them to engage in their affair all over the island. I had no idea and was content while she was away, working extra shifts to match her earnings and surprise her. I was completely clueless. One of the students who went on the trip reached out to me to inform me of the situation. At first, I didn't believe him, but I started investigating on my own. I even checked her texts while she was asleep, but there was nothing incriminating. But there were a few voicemails, so I decided to listen to them. Lo and behold, there was a voicemail from that obnoxious jerk, expressing how exhilarating it was that they almost got caught. I decided to check her laptop and read through her emails. What I found was a mountain of insulting messages, ridiculing me for being oblivious to their affair, and even having intimacy in our bed while laughing about it. The sheer amount of information left me devastated and unsure of what to do next. For a few weeks, I sat on this painful secret, trying my best to act normally. Now I noticed every little detail. I felt foolish for not seeing the signs earlier. There were so many of them. One in particular stood out to me. I noticed that our supply of homemade prohibited substance oil was rapidly decreasing. Even though we weren't engaging in intimacy activity, it was evident that they were using my hard work to enhance their pleasure. This realization made me furious. I was incredibly angry, like the Hulk. It was then that everything finally clicked into place. I realized that I was nothing but a laughingstock to these jerks, and they were using oil I had made in my own bed. I was no longer in pain. I just wanted them to suffer. So while she was studying at the library, I made a new batch of oil. I added enough prohibited substance to make it smell like the usual mixture, but I also included some poison ivy from our backyard. After refilling the spray bottle we used for application, I waited. After a few days of working extra shifts to be out of the house, my plan finally worked. That night, after she went to sleep, I executed my plan. I took her phone and deleted my contact information while replacing it with his. His contact information was changed to mine. I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep because it felt like Christmas morning when I was 5 years old. The next day at dawn, she was in the shower when I received a text. She complained of being extremely itchy. This was my moment. Finally, I could get my revenge. I received a text from her stating that she thought her condition had cleared up, but it turned out to be a herpes flare-up. She apologized, but it was too late. I heard her squeaking in the shower and had to cover my mouth to hold back my laughter. I told her that it was time for us to end things. The new semester was about to start, and I had a crush on another TA. I wanted her to be angry. She was never told no while growing up, and had never experienced rejection, especially not from a balding man in his 50s with herpes. After she finished her shower, it was clear that she had been crying, but I could see the anger in her eyes. She was uncomfortable, squirming at the table, sipping her coffee and contemplating the situation. All she needed was another push. I responded to her numerous pages of anger and sadness by thanking her for the good times and asking her to keep our situation a secret. I didn't want anything to ruin my chances with anyone else. I coped perfectly with the role in the correspondence of her lover professor. This made her flush with anger. Fuming with anger, she snatched her keys and stormed out of the door without uttering a word of farewell. I had a hunch about her destination. I switched on her laptop and initiated a reformatting process, erasing her dissertation and any associated notes before trailing her to the campus. I parked some distance away and hurried to his office, where I discovered her yelling at him amidst a crowd of people comprising professors, aides, students, and other faculty members, accusing him of infecting her with herpes. I was just dying of laughter. Ha ha ha. He was extremely embarrassed and bewildered, while she was weeping uncontrollably in front of her peers. I was ecstatic, completely unfazed by the possibility of being assumed to have herpes as well. The aftermath of their debacle was catastrophic for their department. He was fired from his job on the grounds of violating the university's code of conduct. We parted ways the following year, as per state law, which mandated a 1-year separation period before granting a divorce. I was entitled to retain most of the assets. It wasn't a huge amount, primarily savings, but I had worked hard for it. She didn't complete her doctorate and ended up as a stay-at-home mom who constantly got pregnant and sold Herbalife on Facebook, while he now teaches at a high school.